I'm going to talk about equipment. There's a few things, if you're fluking, it's a few things that are a must. Braid being one of them. Gulp being another one. I get nothing from anybody as far as gulp goes to promote gulp, but if you're not fishing with gulp for fluke, you're missing the boat. Equipment, bait casting, I'm a jig guy. I don't drag lead. I'm going to talk about a rig that I will on certain occasions, but I fish lead heads. Fast, medium fast, fast, and extra fast rods are a must. And I like the 7 feet, 7, 7.2, 7.4. The longer the rod, you can stand and you can bounce. That 7-foot rod's moving it. If you're fishing, say, a 5.5 or 6-foot rod, you have to really go like this. At the end of the day, you're going to get fatigued, even if you're using a small bucktail. Small bucktail, 2 ounces. Usually we don't go below 2 ounces out in the ocean. I mentioned the fast, extra fast, and the braid. If you don't have mono, you can't even, yes sir.
What's the heaviest bucktail that you ever go with?
8 ounces. The bucktail's 8 ounces, but I dress it up to make it 10 and 12 at times. I'll get into that later, what I do to not change the profile of the bucktail, but to make it heavier. You're gonna be, when I tell you how I do it, you're gonna smile and say, I can't believe I didn't think of that. Rods, I just walked through the store before. Jigging World, St. Croix, Loomis, he's got all the good rods here. They're all, I'm a Shimano pro staffer, but there's many good rods out there. As long as you're comfortable with the rod and reel, bait caster, spinner, doesn't matter. Although when we start fishing light, it's a lot easier to cast the spinning reel with the small jig than it is with the bait caster. And we're jigging, we're not dragging, we're jigging. The leader consists, I don't put a top shot on my rod. I tie a 3 or 4 foot length of floral, and that's my rig. A dropper loop, most of the times it's a dropper loop, 16 to 20 inches, and then tie it onto the bucktail. Occasionally, if the drift's really fast, I'll reverse it. I'll put the jig up high and I'll drop it back 3 feet, and I'll put the second hook as a trailer. But I need a fast drift. When I say fast, over a knot and a half, 1.2, 1.5, I'll switch over.
I missed what you were saying. So you said no top shot, you just fish it swivel?
No swivel. You know why I don't use a swivel? Because I'm tired of replacing rod tips on my rods. Because the customers, I'm not knocking my customers, I love my customers, but they don't know when to not reel the swivel in my, so. A 3 foot or 4 foot length of fluorocarbon. And I'm only using fluorocarbon because it's resistant where we're fishing. There's rocks, there's mussels, there's wrecks. And with fluorocarbon, you have a half a chance. If you hang up, you have a half a chance of not shaving it off right away. You could get,
You said 16 to 18 between the jig and the dropper?
Correct. And that's, I'm going on an average, say my average 0.7 to a knot is my ideal fluke condition. So I make adjustments when it's faster and I make adjustments when it's slower. But that's the average. No, I tie right on. Tie a loop knot and tie right on. If you have to change your jig, which normally you won't because you're going to snag. You're going to lose some tackle. But floral leader, that's a must. You'll go through, what's that? Certain spots. For instance, a question on the floor is, do I use the fluke spoons? So I use the fluke spoons with the heavy sinker on a top hook with the 3 foot leader when I'm drifting over a 0.2, 1.5, and I can tell you where you're going to do that all the time. Ambrose channel. That comes in, that's perfect, right on the edges, and you could dead stick that. You don't have to work it, you could dead stick it. The fluke eat them. I'll tell you why, as a business, as a charter captain, why I don't use the spoons. They're expensive. I make all my own jigs. I use the round heads, the Spro knockoffs. I use the banana jigs. They all work, all the colors work. Everybody has a favorite color. If you don't have a favorite color, if you're using white, you can't go wrong. But all the different styles really work. Good hooks. I don't understand why people want to cheap out on the hooks. Owners, VMC, Jigging World, I use the Jigging World hooks. They're beautiful. I use the bait holders for the top hook. It holds the gulp really well. And I use the regular octopus hook on my bucktail because I'm using a lot of times strips instead of gulps. I'm using fresh bait, and I tie stinger hooks, 4, 6, 8 inches long, that comes off the shank of the regular hook. So depending on my strips, say fluke belly, bluefish belly, mackerel, depending on the thickness and the length of the strip is how long I tie my stinger hook and the size of my hook, 4 to 6/0. I don't want to take away from the action of the bait, whatever fresh bait I'm using.
How do you tie your stingers?
I don't even know the knot, but I double the length of line, put the 2 tag ends through the eye of the hook. I wrap it up 6 times up the shank, and I go back through the eye of the hook. And that knot doesn't come. I tie the stingers for my tuna jigs the same way, and that just doesn't come. And I use 60 to 80 pound braid on that. It's really fast once you get the hang of it. Get a 15, 16 inch piece of line, double it, send the 2 tag ends through the eye of the hook, along the shank, up 6 times around the shank, and back out the eye of the hook. And then I'll just do around the shank of the jig and tie it up. That's it. I go through once and tie it up, and that braid you're gonna have to cut it to change it. And a lot of times you have to change that stinger hook every time you change the bait, because it ends up wrapping on the bait.
How do you connect it to the hook of the bucktail?
Just go through the loop, and then I put the hook through the loop around the shank of the bucktail. It's the hook of the bucktail, and then pull it tight, and it stays. Then the barb on the jig doesn't let that slide up. We just talked about the stinger hook. I walk around, as long as it's a good hook. A lot of these hooks are gonna, if you buy the cheaper hooks, they're gonna tin over. The point's gonna become dull, and you defeat yourself the purpose. Because with that slack, you're feeling the jig. You're not really feeling, there's slack in that stinger hook. So you're feeling the bite. A lot of times you're not able to set that stinger hook. They have to set it themselves. So it's critical to use a good hook with a super sharp point to penetrate right away. Fluke's mouth, very tough. I don't know how many of you ever tried this, but say the average depth you're fishing 60, 75 feet where I'm fishing. At the dock, have your buddy walk 60, 75 feet out, and with your fishing rod, try to pull that line out of his hand. See how that works, which is very hard. And number 2, next time before you fillet a fish, take your hook and try to stick it in a fluke's mouth. There, you have to really swing hard to set them hooks. Critical to have a good hook. Local food, sabiki rigs, blues, porgies, mackerel, fresh. This is critical for me. So as my guys are drifting along, and I pretty much know where I'm fishing as far as what forage lives on the reef, but I'm sabiki rigging. Everybody know what a sabiki rig is? And so whatever I'm catching on the bottom, that's legal, because there's some fish that you catch that you can't use. Sand porgies, baby sea bass, small fluke. But whatever fish that's legal that I can catch on a sabiki rig, whoever line is up when I bring it in gets that fish. And that's what we're doing. Plus it shows me what these fish are feeding on. I could adjust the lures and colors accordingly. Also, for whatever fish comes swimming by, I love bluefish. I absolutely love bluefish strips. Thank you. The last few years we've been lucky to have mackerel, the chub mackerel, are very prevalent. I like to fillet these fish. It's cruel, but I like to fillet these fish while they're flopping on the table. I don't want them bled out. I don't want to put them in a bait tank. I don't want to put them in the ice. I want to get them cut as they're bleeding, and all my guys will put the strips on as I'm able to provide them.
And that's it in place of the gulp? instead of the gulp.
Sometimes we'll use the gulp along with the strips for the simple fact, all the fish that we're trying to catch, be fluke, sea bass, but all the little fish down there, they're going to pick on the meat. So even though they're eating all the meat off the strip, if it's not a fluke, you still have your gulp on.
And the gulp would be on the top?
On the top hook and on a jig. We'll fish a gulp end. A big, when we used to fish the tournaments, when we're looking for the big fluke, we'll fish strip baits 12 to 15 inches long for the fluke. There's not too many baits that a big fluke won't eat. Nowadays, with the lack of size and with the new limits and everyone's looking, because you got to catch your 3 fish to take home, if not you'll starve, we backed it down. A 6-inch strip, 7-inch strip is plenty, but fresh is critical. And there's one fresh bait on here that's not on here. Can anyone figure out what it is? Squid. Squid. And the reason I don't put the squid on is because everything eats the squid, big and small. And if you're catching these short fluke, 15, I'm not knocking it. You can't be a big fish if you're not a small fish, but the fluke, the 15, 16-inch fluke, you can catch one after another on a 4-inch piece of strip and a small, but it takes you off the bottom. Figure if it's going to take you 5 minutes to fight the fish, get it in the boat, rebait, and drop back down. If you do that 4 or 5 times an hour, that's 25 minutes that you're not fishing for the big fish, times 6 or 7 hours. There's a couple hours you just lost, because I caught 25 shorts today, but I didn't get any keepers. So we try to stay away. Not that we run short trips, especially when I have families and the kids, and it's just important to bend the rod. But when we're going out I'm going out 25 miles, I'm fishing 85 feet, 95, 105 feet. We're looking for fish, real fish. And I don't want to lose bottom time. Another thing, the dogfish. Over the years, the dogfish have become a terrible, terrible problem, where it prevents us from using this fresh bait, because the dogfish jump all over it. And you guys caught the dogfish with the 2-hook rig. Number one, it's very dangerous. Chances are you're going to have to retie after you get rid of the fish, and you're going to lose more than 5 minutes. So we pick and choose on where I'm going to use this.